We are going to go over how to factor a quadratic when a is equal to 1. That means that when I have a quadratic in standard form, ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, this front number is going to be a 1. That is what we're going over today, when there's a 1 in front. So what I do is I look. I have x squared minus 5x, which means I'm missing the c. So when I factor it, I'm just going to break it down. X squared is x times x minus 5 times x. They have a common factor, so I'm going to circle that and take that out. All that's left is x minus 5 on the inside equals 0. So this is what we do when we have 1, 2 terms. We take out, this is called the GCF. So we factor it out. On problem number 2, I'm going to try and factor it when we have 2 terms. So we would have x times x and negative 2 times 2. This one's different. We can't take a common factor out, so we're going to try and factor it in our parentheses. So when I break up these x's, they both go in the front, and when I break up these 2's, they go in the back. If I wanted to check my work, x times x is x squared. That's correct. Negative 2 times 2 is negative 4. That's correct. And when I add negative 2 plus 2 together, they cancel out, which is why there is no middle term. So these will be our factors. We have another one with 2 terms. I'm going to try and factor the GCF. So I get b and b minus 3 times b. I can take out the b, and all that's left is b minus 3. Those are factored. We have m times m plus 3 times m. Take out a common factor. All that's left is m plus 3. On number 5, now we get into when there are 3 terms, which means we are going to first set up parentheses. Then we're going to set up first terms. Then we're going to find a multiple of 15 that adds to 8. So let's check. I set up my factors first. I set up my first term, which means a and a go to the front. Multiples of 15, let's check. Multiples of 15. 1 times 15, 3 times 5. Now I want to check which one adds up to 8. 1 and 15 make 16, 3 and 5 make 8. So I put a 3 and a 5 in, and both of them should be positives. Let's check. A times a is a squared. 3 times 5 is 15. Add 5 and 3 together, and we get 8. That's true. This is our solution. That's our factors. That's our answer. All right, we take our factors and set them up. The r squared breaks up into r times r. Multiples of 4 are 1 times 4 and 2 times 2, and they need to add to equal a negative 4. 1 and 4 can give me 5. 2 and 2 can give me the 4. Now this is a little bit trickier. I need them to be a -4 when I add them up. So if I make them both negatives, let's check. R times R is R squared. Negative times a negative is +4. And when I add -2 minus 2, I get -4. All right, on number 7, we write our parentheses and factor the A. They both go into the front of our factors. Then we check for multiples. So multiples of 4. This time we want it to add to 5. So those go 4. These two will give me a 5. And to make it a -5, they both need to be negative. So let's check. A squared, good. Multiply, +4, good. Add together, -5, true. Next one, I write my parentheses, break up the x's. Multiple of 2 is nice, only 1 times 2. Those are the only factors. Now I check, how do I get a +1? If I have a positive right here, that means the biggest value needs to be a positive, and this will be a negative. Multiply x squared, true. Multiply -2, true. Add together, 2 minus 1 is a +1. Set up our parentheses. K squared goes in the front. Multiples of 5 are 1 times 5. How do I get a -6? I have to add them together, but in order to be negative, they should both be subtraction. K times K is K squared. -1 times -5 is +5. -1 plus a -5 is -6. Factor, we get x and x. Multiples of 16. 1 times 16, 4 times 4. Which one of those will add to give me a -8? That one gives me 17, so nope. 4 and 4, and I need them to be negative. X times x is x squared. 4 times 4 is 16. -4 and -4 add up to -8. Factor, we get v and v, 16 again. I want a +8 this time, so the only difference from the last one is that instead of negatives, we're going to have positives. V times v is v squared. Add them together, you get 8. Multiplied together, you get 16. All right, now we have 2 terms again. Ooh, so instead of doing the 2 factors, we're going to take out the GCF. So I have v times v minus v when I break them up. I can take out a v. Then we're going to have v minus. I cannot put a 0 here because that would mean nothing used to be here. So I check. The number that is really in front of v is a 1. And there are our factors.